Hey everyone, how is it going? For those of you who are new here, my name is Berna and I am a manifestation coach. I worked for many years as a psychotherapist and then discovered law of assumption, and now I focus exclusively on coaching. So if you want to book a session with me, the link is in the description box below. Okay, let's get into the topic for today. Panic affirming and rage affirming. Do they work? What are they? Okay, so I think of panic affirming as like you see something in the 3D that you don't like, or you just notice you're feeling really fearful about something, and you're like, oh no, I don't want that to happen. And so you start affirming the opposite, like hardcore. Then rage affirming, I would think it's similar in a way, but you're not feeling panic stricken. You're just feeling like really irritated with your current circumstances. And you're just like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm so done with this that I'm just gonna do a rampage and put a lot of like rawr into it, you know? Almost like a workout. You know how when you're working out and it's really challenging and you almost have to feel like a little angry to kind of get through it? So that's what I think about as panic affirming and rage affirming. They absolutely work, right? Your subconscious doesn't care how you're feeling, right? It only cares about what you're telling it, what you're thinking, right? That's the priority. So a lot of people coming from like a law of attraction background will have this feeling of like, oh, I have to get into the right vibration, right? Which means you have to feel just really good all the time, and then I'll naturally manifest what I want. But law of assumption is quite different. And I'm really thankful that I actually never got into law of attraction. It was only when I discovered law of assumption that I was like, this makes sense. So yeah, it's really what you're thinking and believing that is what matters. So you can be crying. I've had clients who told me they had massive success, right? Something terrible happened in the 3D. They're crying, but they're still affirming, right? They're feeling so anxious, but they're still affirming. And then the very next day, or within a couple of days, right, they would see just wonderful movement. Whether it's with an SP or money, right? So in a way, you really can't like overdo it with affirming. You know, you really can't go wrong. And I think that is a really helpful belief, you know, just to have in mind too, that like the way I manifest is perfect. You know, my affirmations always work no matter what. This is working for me. I can see that it's working. I know it's working, right? I always get what I want. Everyone can see that I always get what I want. You know, just those kind of basic, kind of foundational self-concept beliefs that you want to have, that, you know, this does work. And, you know, you can also do little experiments in the 3D if you want, to just like prove to yourself that it really does work, you know? Like I've had clients just, you know, try out this. For example, I like to tell my clients who are in some amount of contact with their specific person, right, their SP, to have their person say something to them, right? So to affirm that their specific person says something pretty unique and random. Like you want it to be like out of the ordinary, like something they would just never say. Like you can't even imagine why they would say it. And the reason you want to do this is because when it happens, it's so like mind expanding. It makes you realize like, wow, this really is how reality works. I am the operant power here. You know, it seems like I'm in this world that is controlled by outside forces, and everyone has free will, and, you know, people can be against me and they can do things I don't like. And then when you see it firsthand, and of course you can do these kind of experiments with anyone. It doesn't just have to be your specific person, right? I think I might have talked about that in previous videos. Like when I was first learning about this years ago, I would intend that like a friend who always wore all black started wearing pink. And she did, like pretty quickly. And maybe it's, it can be kind of easy sometimes because you don't have a lot of resistance, like if the person doesn't start wearing pink, but it's so wild when you see it happening and they're just wearing pink every day when you've only ever seen them wear black, something like that. So, but anyway, just like a fun little success story. I have permission to share from a client, but they were doing this experiment with their specific person, right? Just for a couple weeks. And they decided to have their person say abracadabra, right? They're like, I don't know how. And honestly, they didn't really believe in it, that it was going to happen. But they decided to give it a try anyway. And they're like, my person said abracadabra. They told me abracadabra, right? Just like, I have no idea how this is going to happen. And then they told me they were just cooking together the other night. And again, part of the reason I was having them do this experiment is because they haven't had their person say, they want to hear certain things from their person. And so doing this experiment just shows them like it really is completely possible to have your person say whatever you want, right? So they were cooking together and just, cooking some, some chicken and asparagus, whatever. And they said their specific person just out of nowhere picked up a piece of the asparagus and was like, asparagadabra. And they were like, wait, what did you say? And they're like, oh, I said abracadabra, but, with a little asparagus pun or something. And they said it was just kind of like eerie, like spooky, like, whoa, like I did that. And like with such minimal effort, this was not something they were affirming for like a bunch. It was just like from time to time they would think about it over the course of a couple weeks. So, and they said that since that happened, their belief in this whole process and just in their inner power has really skyrocketed, right? So I may make a separate video on that, but you really do want to cultivate a relationship with your inner power of like, wow, you're incredible. Like you can do anything, That's kind of what you want to feel towards your higher self, inner power, like however you want to feel about the part of you, your subconscious mind, right? I prefer inner power myself just because it's like, it's part of you, it is your power. And a lot of us have kind of a distant relationship with that part, right? We feel like, I don't know, you've let me down in the past, you've manifested a bunch of nonsense into my life that I didn't like, so I don't trust you. Like, I think if we're all honest, that's a lot of times how we're starting out, right? Or it can just come back again and again, that feeling of distrust of like, okay, I'm going to try it, but I'm not expecting a lot from you, right? Which, as we know from psychology, if someone says something like that to you, right, how do you usually respond, right? If someone's like, I don't have a lot of faith in you, but like, I guess I'll, allow you to do this task or whatever, right? It's stressful. It feels like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I can't do that. Maybe I'm not going to do that very well. So it's kind of similar. You just kind of want to have like a sweeter relationship with your inner power of like, I trust you. I know you've got this, I know how this works. Anyway, okay, I'm getting a little off track here. But all of that is just to show that, things can change in an instant, right? So whatever you're seeing in the 3D, it's not really a big deal. I know it can feel absolutely terrible, especially when it's like our worst fear has manifested, right? Something that just like really reinforces like a negative belief, because that's usually what feels bad, right? It's the belief that feels so bad. So if I see something that triggers me in a certain way, it's because there's still a little bit of a belief there, right? So it's just feedback. And I think it's helpful to just think about it like that, like, okay, this is just an unpreferred experience because I have a certain belief about this. That doesn't mean anything, right? I can easily change my beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts that we've thought over and over again, or that we've heard from other people over and over, right? So you might notice as you do this more and more, just how many negative beliefs are like a part of society, right? You hear people saying things like, oh, relationships are so hard, and just all of that. I'm sure you've noticed it yourself, on depending on like where you are in this journey. But I feel like the farther you get, the more you see it in shows and movies, just like, whoa, I don't want to believe that stuff. So anyway, yes, whatever state you're in, even if you're super stressed and anxious, and actually I think the benefit of doing some kind of affirmation rampage when you're really in a negative state is that it's going to pull you out of it, especially the longer you do it. So, set a timer, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, like really challenge yourself to just like affirm the opposite of like whatever you're seeing, right? So, say for instance, you're I can't think of an example. Say, for instance, you're manifesting living with your person, and your person has just told you something like, I'm so happy I live alone. I would never live with anyone. Like, that would be my worst nightmare, right? Okay, so, if possible, take some space, right? If this was like a text they sent you or something, and then just, set the timer and go for it. And some people like to walk when they're manifesting, or they like to do it, when they're affirming, or they like to drive when they're affirming, but it's whatever works for you, right? But really get into it and get yourself riled up. Like, do a little rage affirming if you want, where you're just like, no, 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 no. There's a lot of power in just telling your mind no when it starts to go down these trains of thought, right? Just like, no, I know who I am, and I know how this works, and my person has no free will. No one does. This is my reality. I'm not changing them. I'm just shifting into a reality where they're naturally already telling me everything I want to hear. My desires are mine, and I know how to shift realities, right? I've been doing it my whole life. This is not difficult for me, right? All of that stuff. And just anything that comes to your mind. Or if it's easier, just do 1 or 2 affirmations and just, but you can do it emphatically if you want. And don't worry if you feel sad or stressed as you're doing these affirmations, because I promise you, by the end of that 10 minutes, 20 minutes of saying these things to yourself, and sometimes it's really helpful too to just like have a hand on your heart, especially if you're feeling really emotional about it. Just kind of soothe yourself a little bit, kind of feel that just support, and just go for it. 1 or 2 affirmations, just affirming the opposite of what's happening. Throw in some revision too, right? So in that, the example I gave of your person saying like the opposite of what you want to hear, just tell yourself like, no, my person, my SP, you could say their name right, would never say something like that, because they love living with me, and they've always loved living with me, and our relationship is wonderful, and we are the happiest couple, and they feel so lucky to be with me every day. Stuff like that, so, but kind of throwing in those they have always, right, just to kind of revise it a little bit more, because that really does silence the part of your brain that's like, but what about when they, what about this other relationship, which, the person didn't want to live with you either, stuff like that, right? You're like, no, I've always had lovely romantic relationships. They've always been really fun and easy, stuff like that. So anyway, sorry, it was a little bit all over the place, but I know that helped you guys. And yeah, feel free to comment, if you want me to make a video about a specific topic. And I am going to try and hop on here and just go live randomly sometimes. So that'll be fun. But yeah, again, feel free to book a session with me if you want. And yeah, thanks for watching. Okay, bye.